What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Today, we'll be talking about Conquest, the best decks to use, the best cards and strategies that have been successful on week 1. We're also talking about Nerf Galactus, all the cards that got adjusted in the most recent card balance patch, and probably one of the more important subjects as always, and that is Snapping 101, when to snap, how to snap, and how to master it for the new Conquest mode. We're going to talk about all that today and more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Alex Coccia. Happy Father's Day. That's when we are filming. And also happy post-Conquest week. Post-Galactus nerf. It actually came. How you doing, bud?
Happy Father's Day to you as well, and to all the other fathers out there in the Snapchat world. It's been great, Cozy. I mean, I've been really enjoying Conquest. I've been playing an absolute ton of it. I've been like collecting, I've been amassing tickets, like just trying to amass as many tickets as I can. I'm starting with like all the silvers, and then I'm going to do like a non-stop run at gold for a while, and I want to just amass infinite tickets so I can bring the top decks into Infinite Ladder here, and we're going to be discussing those today on our channel, actually.
Yeah, you didn't say the line, Alex.
What line? I'm joking. Listen, with the release of Conquest, it's an amazing, if not spectacular time to be a Marvel Snap player.
Okay, I was like, are you ill, sir? How are you feeling? Check his temperature. Yeah, dude, I haven't played ladder since Conquest came out. I haven't even touched the ladder since Conquest came out, which is wild, and I kind of thought would happen. We also had Silk come out this week. We have Spider-Ham, which we're going to be talking about on your side of the channel, come out today, actually, which is going to be wild. What else are we talking about on your side of the channel, Alex?
We're also going to be talking about bundles, bugs, and blunders. This is a topic of discussion that I feel needs to occur, and I think Cozy agrees. There's been a couple missteps here, and we want to discuss some of the things that the community have been a little concerned about, and kind of, give our takes on what we believe is, the best actions going forward to kind of correct some of these situations. As alluded to prior, we're also going to be talking about Spider-Ham, who I'm actually super excited about. It's actually, this might be a hot take, but I'm actually more excited about Spider-Ham than some of the other cards coming out in this particular season. And finally, we're going to talk about our favorite bad cards, because there's just some cards that, even though they're statistically terrible, you just love and you want to play all the time, and we're going to talk about those, Cozy.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the bundles. First of all, they get 3 times the value of the conversation, Alex, which is massive. Big numbers, 10 times the value. We can slap whatever we want there. Important conversations to have. Definitely looking forward to that. We're going to talk about, obviously, the conquests and all of the decks cards, things that are working for us. And, man, just the patch as a whole. We have another OTA coming this week. And snapping, Alex, I think one thing that is made pretty evident from Conquest, from my opponents at least, is like, we could use a little refresher on snapping and what pros do and what you probably should take into consideration, as Conquest is very different than the ladder. Now, let's go and start easy. We're going to just talk about Silk. Came out last week. It got blown by because of, obviously, I don't know, the huge patch and Conquest coming. Fun card. I actually really enjoy Silk, Alex. It's a card I, kind of dumped into my Sarah Miracle decks, into a lot of my move decks. A little crazy. Not using her all the time, but I enjoy her. Did you get the card? And if not, what do you think?
So in this particular case, I decided to skip this release.
Yep.
I'm definitely targeting Spider-Ham and the other Spider-Man card, 2099, that's coming out shortly as well. And Silk was like the one at 6,000 tokens. I was like, you know what? I can go without it.
Yeah.
I can go without it. And I mean, listen, I have the tokens, but I'm cheap. I like hoarding my tokens, and I have buyer's remorse all the time. Statistically wise, it's not horrible either. Like, it looks like a pretty good card. So, I mean, your experience will obviously indicate whether or not my impressions are correct. But I did feel I could skip this one, if I'm being totally honest with you.
I like the card. Sometimes I put cards like Arnim Zola into my deck for that quick surprise, or to give some type of way to get to a unreachable location without Jeff and Doom. And Silk feels like a very cheap way to do that with a little extra power. It was actually a lot easier to get her to something like Sanctum or maybe Quantum Realm that sets everything to 2, because you're able to play one card, get it over there. If it goes to another lane, you do it again, and your opponent can't typically play on that lane, or they avoid it in some situations. But that can also bite you with things like Superflow. She felt really good. And she did make Craven better. Not as good as I thought, but better for sure. So with that, man, we have to obviously just start with Conquest, and we kind of pre-talked about it last week. Now we've gotten our hands on the game mode, and I want to talk mainly like how are you going about it, the strategies, first impressions, and then a fun thing we could do is obviously talk about the decks that are performing the best, which a couple can surprise you, and then our favorite cards from each cost. Maybe not the best, but ones that we would highlight as MVPs, if you will. This will be kind of the meaty subject, and I'm excited. First, you said that you play Proving Grounds a lot right now. And I've seen this, Alex. I've seen people playing a lot of Proving Grounds to get silver tickets. to win all the top dogs in gold, go to the Infinite Conquest, then you start getting your gold tickets, and then you do the Infinite Conquest if you can or want to. Is that your approach? What are you doing there?
Yeah, so there's a couple different approaches to how to actually handle the meta of collecting tickets, one might say. And for me, it's been amass silver and then amass gold. And the reason for this is because I feel like the headspace and the mindset of approaching silver matches and gold matches is totally different than Proving Grounds. Like Proving Grounds, is basically, you snap turn one, they snap turn one, and then you guys go balls to the walls, and then hopefully someone wins. Hopefully you win the game and you get your ticket, right? But when you're actually moving into silver and gold, the mindset completely changes. It becomes very competitive. Every snap matters. That's why I love the Snapping 101 topic, because it completely changes the landscape of Conquest.
Conquest mode at its base value, Alex, one thing I want to just make note of, the first thing that I want to say is there's a reason I'm not playing ladder right now. Seriously. And it's mainly, if you look at it, ladder gives no rewards. Well, actually, it requires you to reach a rank to get rewards, right? And there's always pressure every game. If you want to go for the missions, if you want to test out a deck. Conquest, on the other hand, doesn't have the stakes, especially Proven Ground. You get to pick your rewards on top of that if you're not playing a ton. Even though it feels like more of a time commitment, ultimately, I think it's really not at all, and how you can space that out. And I got to start with Proven Grounds. It is the unranked mode. Now, it's a little long on some people's front if they don't snap or whatever, but my gosh, it's perfect. It's perfect to test decks, man. I don't know about you, but I've been using it like crazy to see different builds and test different habits. How about you?
Proving Grounds is a perfect unranked mode, because the key thing is you're getting medals for the medal shop. And I actually had this shower thought. I'm like, I hope they don't get rid of the medals from Proving Grounds, because not that you can farm, 15 medals is not a lot, but you ain't getting 15 medals at rank 70 playing a crystal deck because you're trying to experiment. It just doesn't work that way, right? And so Proving Grounds I think is great, and I think it's a lot of fun. I really do like it, and the fact that it's the de facto unranked mode, I think is okay. There are some people that I think would prefer a specific unranked mode, like you queue for the single game. I get that, but I think for the time being, especially knowing that Second Dinner is a small studio, listen, I'm gonna go out there and say it. I'd rather that PC UI come out faster than get it on ranked mode. This is fine for me if that PC mode is coming out faster. If we're getting a full release of PC faster because we're skipping that unranked mode and Proving Grounds is going to be our de facto way to play that, I'm all for it. I'm sold.
It's so cool that it kind of checked two boxes off, right? We got a sweaty ranked mode, we got an unranked mode kind of in there as well. We're guaranteed not to play bots outside the miscommunication, which I don't know how that was missed. I get it. It made a lot of sense. Turning players, going in for the first time, you get a bot. But they said there's no bots, and then to get a bot for your first match on each thing felt weird for a second. But it feels so cool, especially, I'm going to say as a content creator, knowing that I'm not going against bots. Knowing that I just get to play, hopefully most of the time, pretty damn good decks. So for Proving Grounds, what I like about it is I either test my decks out. Okay, I test out different decks that I'm building. I can refine a destroy deck. I can refine a bounce list. This card seemed good, and not really. I tested it on a few and just collecting those silver tickets, right? But then also, man, there's a couple times where I was multitasking, trying to take care of my son and stuff. I ran an Agatha list, man. Just ran Agatha at its core, and I got 4 silver tickets running Agatha. Now, it was a good amount of games, but it doesn't matter. It was wild. And boosters on top of that. Sign me up, man.
It is a lot of fun, and I'm glad that it takes some of the heat off of ranked, because I think there's a lot of people out there. I talk to a lot of my friends who are casual. Sometimes they just don't want to play ranked. They don't want that pressure. They just want to actually play a video game like Marvel Snap. It's listen, if you're playing pickup hockey, you're playing some shinny somewhere, men's league or whatever, you're playing in beer leagues. You just want to go for a skate.
Yeah.
You don't need to go you're going to the Chell every time, you know what I mean? And I think that this unranked mode, I think, takes a little bit of heat off, and I can't get over the fact. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I love the fact that you're getting these medals, and even if you're not really getting to gold or infinity ladder or anything like that, you're still picking up enough medals from playing Proving Grounds. You can probably get that Green Goblin variant. I think you could.
Yep.
I'm on pace to, and I haven't been playing a ton of gold yet. I'm saving that for this week on stream. So it's I think you can achieve a lot with that shop.
Kind of what I did, or the way I approached it, is I did Proving Grounds, and then silver is where I would be okay, this is the deck I'm going to take into gold, but I'm going to kind of tweak a couple things here and play it out. Now, even if I won or lost, I kind of looked at the cards that I was playing, and I would look and say, what card really didn't provide the value I thought? Almost like you do on ladder a little bit, but because you're playing kind of there's like 10 meta decks in there, you get much more of a concentrated testing grounds. And so that's something that I enjoy doing in Silver more. And/or people are still very competitive in Silver. There's something to lose, especially for those that go in through the proven grounds. But then even between the gold wins, I have to tell you, there's times I'd win 2 in a row. In fact, on my recent Surprise Ultron video, and I would switch my cards around a little bit into that third battle, which is a bit risky, but I noticed there's some things that weren't providing the value. And so that is kind of how I'm approaching at least the base Conquest for me, and it's working out pretty good.
You touch on a very, very important thing, and I kind of want to bring this up in terms of like strategy. The idea of tweaking decks. And I'm going to say this, and I think this might come to a shock to some people, but anybody who's been playing Conquest a lot should figure this out. A ladder deck does not necessarily equal a Conquest deck. Not even close. I really do believe you cannot just take a top tier ladder deck and just smack it into Conquest and be okay with it. I mean, some can, like some of the really broken decks we'll probably talk about at some point today, like the high evo ones and stuff like that. Yeah, okay, fine. There's a little bit of universal, like, spanking going on there. However, what I will say is, like, you just can't take a ladder deck and assume it's going to perform as effectively in Conquest, because there's just too much variability in, first of all, your opponents, and in the way that like the games are playing out, because you're losing that surprise factor in just one game. If you're playing 4 separate matches, right, the way you're using surprise cards becomes so much more important. So I do think there has to be specific deck building considerations around Conquest specifically, and I'm glad you're making those adjustments on the fly, because I think while you're practicing and like you're like, if you're going through Silver and Gold, you're like, you know what, I think these cards need to change. It's not carrying its weight. You need a card to carry its weight to win Infinite.
Yeah, for sure. I think you really said it well. I'll say that Proving Grounds, you probably could just use a pretty good deck that's standardly good, because it's just like 8 cube snap, what's consistent, what wins a lot, get your ticket, go on. But dude, yeah, in Gold Conquest, I can't tell you how many decks I beat because I knew what they were doing. I knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't know what I was doing, and that's kind of a lot of the decks I built. They have 3 cards at least that are completely out of the blue. The Juggernaut, the what is this doing in there? And that alone has won me. I have done way more 8 cube games in Conquest than I ever have in Ladder. It's because I know I'm about to surprise, and I need to just collect while I can. And we're going to talk about that more in snapping. So let's go to let's start with the decks, and then we'll move to our favorite cards. Now, when it comes to the decks, Alex, I'll let you kick us off here. Give me 1 or 2 that either you've played against or yourself you're like, it's just felt damn reliable.
So one that I've absolutely loved, that I've been crushing with, honestly, I almost don't want to say it, Cozy, because like I don't want it in the meta, but Sandman ramp. Honestly, It's been so good. Like the amount of times I see like Kitty Pryde come out on turn 1, I'm like, nah. I snap. I got Sandman. I got Wave. This game's over for you. Like, you're getting nothing from me. There is no way you're getting 10 cubes from me. Like, there's no way. So these Sandman ramp lists with that have Wave in them naturally anyways, just completely destroy these extremely greedy things. Now, it's a little susceptible to High Evolutionary, because like High Evo don't care. High Evo don't care about no Sandman, so then you just don't play that Sandman. You use some of the other pieces. You try to out-tempo them with your Odins and your Doctor Dooms and stuff like that. I think the big play there is usually using Arrow to supplant their Hulk play. That's what I like doing. Listen, I've been playing a ton of Arrow lately. It's so good. No one expects Arrow. It's a surprise card again. But yeah, for me, Sandman Ramp's been like, there's 2 decks I've been playing a lot of. Sandman Ramp, and it's been insane.
Yeah, Ramp has been really good because it's one of those that if you don't have an answer to it, you're done. Or doesn't care about curve in the later game as much, right? So it's much more dependable. And man, it's so funny to me. We'll talk about Galactus in a second, but it's like the overreactions of things like Wave. Like guys, there's a lot to be upset about. I do get that. But the thing that is time and time again is just immediate reactions, gut reactions quickly. They nerfed it, they killed it, F2. Wave now, dude, is such a wild card. It is truly a wild card that is, I thought they've done it pretty well. I do. As someone that loves Sarah a lot, it's frustrating. Like, I'll go in with the perfect hand, and I'm like, you snap it on 5. What an idiot. Like, what is he doing? I'm killing him. He plays Wave, I'm screwed, right? Like, it is truly a crazy card while also keeping these decks still pretty competitive. And Sandman Ramp offers power, combo, disruption, Yeah, that's a good one for sure. We'll check them off the list. High Evo is, listen, the way that they said it in their patch notes, it's kind of obvious he's going to get some kind of tune-up. They've already said that they're going to adjust him in some kind of light way. You know, I think it does need to be done in some sort of fashion. It's kind of hard to pinpoint one card. Is it the Hulk? Is it Cyclops? Is it them all together? Should High Evo just be a 4-0? Should he be a dead card in your hand? I've seen some weird kind of takes, and I'm going to be interested what they do to kind of lower the consistency. Because, listen, the amount of comments I got on my Jane Jaw video, like, this deck's okay. Jane Jaw at High Evo right now is just, like, sweeping. It's killer. And so those are the decks. You guys can see the list right here. Both these decks doing phenomenal jobs. If you guys want just a pretty consistent deck before they probably address it. Alex, now we'll talk about consistent decks in a moment, but balance too. We kind of talked about this. We thought this would happen, but it's those decks that you can nope out of your decisions that are doing well. Yeah.
Absolutely, balance is pretty wild, and I took balance into to gold and been experimenting with it quite a bit. And I like it a lot. I really do like it a lot, but it is very susceptible to wave. Like if they have wave, it's like, oh man. But if they have wave, you dump your Hitmonkey hand on turn 5. The deck that I've been playing with balance actually carries a Chavez, not just because it pushes everything down, helps you, but like it gives you the opportunity. Okay, they're playing wave or whatever. I'm gonna play my Hitmonkey hand on turn 5. Usually it's Hitmonkey, Mysterio, and you know, whatever else. Kitty Pryde's usually a write-off, right? Unfortunately, and then you have a Chavez play on 6, right? Which is still a 9 power play. So you still have some counterplay to some degree, but it's pretty rough. However, I will tell you though, if they don't have wave and they don't have Sandman, it's probably one of the absolute best decks in Conquest, because like you can nope out of locations, you have the mobility, you can just do so much, and the power, you can go so vertical. And my favorite has been the versions with Bast, where I'm like literally playing a 1/3 hood, and then I got like multiple demons in my hand just waiting to go down as well, because I've been falconing them up and I got beasts, and I've been loving it. But I mispilot it though. Like it's so hard to pilot. It takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, it's been made easier to pilot with Kitty Pryde, but that doesn't take away that it's still a tough deck. And what you said is perfect, right? Snap is all about winning what? 2 out of 3 locations. Balance allows you to see what locations they're doing, spread your power out a little bit. And then the thing that it does the best is you can build up your power, and they can't address it unless they have Shadow King. Like it's not high enough for Shang-Chi. When it is high enough, it's too late. They have the priority. You're able to do the priority dance. Killmonger, I'm gonna bounce my kitty back, right? Like oh man, it's a tough one. I like it. I think it's in a cool place. We can talk about Beast a little more at the June patch. Now outside of bounce, man, consistency, right? Consistent decks that do well. Patriot, I thought would be my go-to. Patriot is my go-to deck. You know, I was testing out all these different decks, Alex. Testing them out, and as you know, my first Conquest video was Surprise Ultron, because the whole reason I even played that deck back in the day was on the ladder, I disguised it as a Sherry deck. I was literally hinting, I've got my Zero, I've got my Lizard, and then I was like, oh, what's this Invisible Woman doing here? You know, well, bam, I would throw out some cards. I kind of wanted the same premise for Conquest because I figured it would probably do well. And it's kind of hard to disguise as a high Evo deck at the moment or whatever. But it has worked massively. He is so consistent, whether it's with Patriot Lad or just consistent Patriot Man. I have loved what he has done for me in Conquest.
I love the fact that I was playing Conquest and I went against like 3 or 4 Patriot lists, and I'm like, I went to YouTube and typed in Cozy Snap, and I'm like, that's why. There it is. Cozy Surprise Ultron list is back, baby. And I got to tell you, it's performing really well. I think it's great. And there's not a lot of Enchantress. There's just not as much Enchantress. I think people are running greedier lists right now. Like, I think that like even High Evolutionary does not naturally run Enchantress. So like people running those decks, like they're gonna have a hard time competing with the straight up value proposition that Surprise Ultron can do. So I really liked your list. I thought it's great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's the what it is too. I think it's wave. I think it goes back to wave. Nerf Sarah. Sarah isn't out there as much. Sarah and Enchantress is not out there, and then you can play more. And in the deck, Brood is like the only one that I have that's like more of an obvious Patriot card through the first few turns, right? But this is a card, right, that you could play into Death's Domain or Altar of Death, and it has a lot of these Patriot cards have variety and variability of where you can play them, which is great. But people, the reason I kind of prefer this more than the Patriot Lad is like Mr. Sinister's great, but it's just a dead giveaway, and the whole purpose of the deck is to capitalize on cubes as much as you possibly can, right? And so that's a deck I like a lot. Discard, I haven't been playing as much. I've ran against it a lot, though, I feel like.
Discard's been pretty good. Pretty good. It can be somewhat annoying against like the wave style play because like you get stuck with the swarms in your hand sometimes. But it doesn't usually feel so bad. Like if you know they're playing that kind of deck, you can dump your swarms. Like it's easy. There's zero cost if you've procced them, right? So it ultimately ends up being relatively reliable. One deck that I've been playing a lot that I love, and it's one of the ones that I did one of my first videos on, was a junk deck. Was a toxic junk deck, and that's the one that had Valkyrie in it because I had Sentry in it. And people would see Sentry, they're like no idea what's going on. Like, who's playing Sentry in 2023? And it's basically they would sit there and be like, okay, I win the right lane. Like he has a -10. What's going to happen? And he played Viper over here to kick over the hood. So like, what's his play? And then sure enough, it's like Valkyrie says hello. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, oh, he's a Valkyrie. Who's playing Valkyrie and Sentry together? So like, I've been playing this toxic deck, which is great because like I don't even have to use Hazmat half the time. Like I just win off of everything else. But like, oh man, I think I'm a believer in Sentry, by the way. Like low key.
Whoa, hey!
I think I really like Sentry. I played like 100-something games of junk, and Sentry has really warmed up for me because people just don't know how to respond to it. And that's so advantageous when you've played a card hundreds of times and then someone is like looking at it like, what's Sentry mean? Like, what does that even mean? It's so advantageous in Conquest.
I feel like he's probably better in Conquest than Ladder too, because in Ladder, if you have like locations that don't work or like, you know, you can't play in the whatever left or middle, you're just like, damn it, I hate this card, it's terrible. But like, if that happens to you in Conquest, you just retreat and you go to the next battle and you let it be, you know, a more favored position. So yeah, that's a good point. There's kind of a lot of cards that slide into that role on Ladder, not dependable because of X, Y, and Z. Conquest, you can nope out, you can get out of there. Dude, I gotta say, I've got a huge deck guide coming out this week. I've been working on it already for a while. Destroy has been awesome. Destroy has been fantastic for me in Conquest. For multiple reasons, things like Arnim Zola is so hard. If you don't have the Cosmo or Arrow, it's over. You're getting like at least 4 cubes from it, from my experience. It's a deck that is similar to Bounce, where you can kind of nope out of a lane and then go back into another lane, which that's what's been crushing it for me on Gold Conquest. So Destroy is one that I encourage people to go and test out a little bit more. Move decks, I did play a good amount of Move. That's how I got my first couple tickets, and that is exactly what I thought. It's still pretty damn good. The Move wave is pretty killer, Alex.
Yeah, I played some Move as well. It wasn't bad. I just, you know what it is? I just Move still feels like it needs a little something. I actually am a believer in Ghost Spider. I do like Ghost Spider a lot, but like, I'm gotta be honest with you. Like, I'm not a fan of Human Torch. I just don't want to play those Human Torch style decks. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I think I need to do more testing with Move. But one thing I will say though, I have a question about your Destroy. Have you been playing Destroy with Deadpool or without Deadpool?
Deadpool.
With Deadpool. That's surprising.
When you do things just right with this deck, man, it has the ability to be both consistent, but then over the top crazy, right? So that's what I like about it. I can put up reliable power, but then if they wave, boom, I can null an Arnim, which is tough to manage, and that's one of the things you have to work around. But with Deadpool, if they don't have wave, fantastic. If they do have wave, you kind of just said the other strategy, right? You have Death that's constantly working down, which is awesome too, because potentially you can do something so easily, and you could do a Death in Arnim Zola. You could do a Death 4-cost card, Vino. I mean, there's a lot you can throw down on one turn. Carnage, Bucky Barnes, plus a card you just played, plus Death. I mean, things can get out of control, which leads to overconfidence, which leads to big cube wins. And I just find it pretty easy to get the value out of Deadpool. Sometimes I leave him on there as a 1/4, dude. I'm not always trying to destroy him. Like people, I don't know what it's about scaling cards, but it's like, oh, but I've got a way to destroy him. I can get it bigger. And it's like, nah, dude, just take the 1/4, you know?
It's funny you mentioned that because there is that obsession with, like, I remember when, like, even Black Panther came out. Like, I'm like, hey, I got a 64 Black Panther. That is absolutely obscene. And you really never need that. And then other people are like, I'm going to get Black Panther to 15,000. And it's like they gave so many cubes away. And then eventually, I think Binks broke Black Panther completely.
Yeah, they nerfed Onslaught, right? Like, after that.
Yeah, it's like, hey, 64 or 32 is probably totally fine, guys. We don't need to go absolutely ham here. But yeah, you're right. I mean, even with Human Torch, like really a 1/4. Like I'm complaining about Human Torch, but 1/4, it's done its job, right? So yeah. I like that. Does Sabretooth make the cut for your Destroy list or no? Is Sabretooth still dead in the water or what?
Oh, man, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm playing Sabretooth, bro. I'm playing
Yes,
Sabretooth.
okay. I'm glad he's back. I've been wanting Sabretooth.
I don't even know if he's
comeback.
back. I think he's coming from the great. Like, was he ever good? You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, he's here, right? Like, what it is it's capitalizing. You know what? I'll just give a sneak peek. I don't really care. I think it's not launching until Tuesday, Wednesday. What it is it's capitalizing on power. You are having ways to get power, but also keep the power that you destroyed to get the power, and overloading. If they don't play wave, overloading. If you expect wave, then you play them out on 5. But like death could be for free or very low. Sabretooth is free. You have potentially a 1-cost Deadpool, and then you have, let's say, Carnage Bucky Barnes. Dude, that's enough power to win any lane. Like, seriously, it is. And then you have, like, the other tools. Again, this is what I've been playing massively, and Alex is getting exposing me. You get all the tools you need to, like Arnim Zola, to get to these other lanes. And then, you know, I even have some tech cards in there that help me out, or surprise cards. So, yeah, Sabretooth, man, made the cut as well. And even at a 3-4, if I can't do anything out of him, I'm like, all right. You know, they armored the lane. I'm like, okay, it's okay, you know. And people forget that you destroyed them too. Like, if you hold on to them, you know, they kind of forget a little bit. So, I still wish it was a 3-5 with Silk being a 2-5, but I'm starting to understand a bit more, if you will. But yeah, you know what? As you guys can see, the decks are good. These are the ones you do see in the ladder, but let it be known, there are a lot of little variants, right? If you listen to the podcast, we're not showing all these decks, but there's little variants to throw in here, and some of them might be these cards that we're going to talk about. Now, these these will not be the best cards at every cost. These are just our favorite cards, week 1 of Conquest, that you think made a pretty good difference in your Conquest runs, Alex. We're going to start with 1 cost. Hit me.
For me, it's Iceman. I know that it's absolute cringe for any bounce or combo-based list that I'm against, and I dropped that Iceman on turn 1, and it's just like, they're like, you serious? I'm also a big fan of holding it till turn 4 and dropping on turn 4 to maximize the opportunity to hit their Sarah. If I know they have Sarah, you know, maximize the chances of ruining their hand. It's great. You don't necessarily even need to do that if you're running wave, which is I've been doing a lot of my decks. But I think that Iceman low-key has been extremely frustrating for a lot of the combo-centric players out there.
Yeah, just a good, he maintains always feeling good to play. Like, on curve, not on curve, to fill out turn 5 even, like, you know you're messing him up, and I think Spider-Ham, I'm excited to talk about him because I think he'll do that job really well as well. You know what am I too? And by the way, feel free on some of these to say a couple, because I think there's some big impact cards. I think in this specific use, the more the better. So first of all, Quinjet is a card I'm using a lot more of. And my 2 1-costs are 2 cards that it's Quinjet and it's Howard the Duck, actually. And it's because these 2 cards give you nothing. They give you nothing. If you play this with Rocks and Hawks, maybe it gives you a bit more information. But Quinjet and the value of pulling random cards in Conquest is so much, it's crazy better, right? And Howard, he gives me the tools that I need to do well in knowing when to snap, when to stay, which I think is more important. But also, again, this gives my opponent nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it plays into a lot of my strategy with snapping 101.
Yeah, basically all it tells your opponent that you're the one person that bought Howard the Duck.
Probably.
Essentially.
Yeah,
like, that's it. Like, oh, he has a Howard the Duck at infinite? Like, who even played? Like, yeah, so it's, if anything, it's just completely confusing. They might just retreat, honestly, like, for fear of what you're capable of. But I actually do like those picks a lot. Moving to number 2, though, can I hit you with the number 2 that I think is wild and I've been really enjoying?
Yeah, what's up?
And I know you're going to like it. Okay. It's Daredevil. Like, Daredevil has been so good because, like, okay, I think that there might be a bit of a problem with location lockdown right now. Like, it's just, it's so wild because, I mean, we're going to be talking about a number 5 card that I really like, too, that I think gives a Daredevil a nice high 5, no pun intended. But, like, honestly, Daredevil's been wild. Anytime the cubes are on the line, you're in a Conquest match, and you really want to make sure you close out the win, having Daredevil on your side of the board just feels so good. And I've been on the other side, where I'm playing like a deck like Silver Surfer, where I'm not naturally playing a Daredevil, and they have Daredevil on the board. And I'm like, damn it, what are they going to hit me with? Where's that Prof X going? Where is that Gamora going? Where is the blank whatever? It is so rough in Conquest when you play Daredevil, and it's like when they snap, you're like, oh, damn it, right? I want to play Daredevil just to knock out their Daredevil, so now the Daredevil effect doesn't even happen. I'd rather it be that way. So I think Daredevil's been a wild 2-cost.
When it's played against me, dude, you're right. I question everything. I'm like, well, I'm exposed. I know they know everything I'm doing now, right? I like the pick. For 2 costs for me, there's a couple that I feel like I could choose from. I want to say first and foremost, Luke Cage. Yeah, the high Evo stuff, that's a big time bonus. I mean, that's like a shut him down, folks, right? Late turn Luke Cage, let him have the Hulk lane, all that Cyclops garbage they built up, take it away. Location variance has come in so clutch, man. I can't even tell you location variance coming in clutch. But also small things like, I mean, Valkyrie, we just talked about, right? Like Valkyrie and not having to worry about that. I was playing him in a Bast list where it's like, dude, you have these other cards here. Why are you playing with high power? Because Iron Man Bast is so busted. But Luke Cage protects you from that, right? Luke Cage protects you from so much. And I feel like he's just been really good as a plug-and-play card that I've been using in Conquest. Scorpion is also a low-key banger. Now, I kind of played him again because of the recent bundle or whatever. But man, just like I feel like it just like neuters some decks out there for what they're trying to do.
Scorpion's always been one of those cards. Like, I mean, I picked Iceman for my number one, right? Iceman Scorpion's the most toxic 1-2 combo in Marvel Snap, and like it is great. And I'm actually surprised Scorpion didn't see as much play with Abomination, right? Like it didn't make a lot of the lists with Abomination, which is kind of surprising. Considering like originally we thought it was going to have a huge synergy, right?
Oh.
I do like that pick a lot. And yeah, Luke Cage has been wild. Luke Cage has been an MVP. Like I'm playing it in Surfer. I'm playing it pretty much anywhere I can naturally slide it in because of that defensive side. Like, and honestly, it's defensive against locations. It's defensive against your opponents. It's defensive against high evolutionary. Can you imagine that? 20% of your games, it's going to have a very extremely important role to play. So I do think that Luke Cage was an excellent pick on your part.
Thanks, buddy. And obviously, guys, hey, Jeff, all that, like, yeah, good cards. We know that. They're great. Hit Monkey.
I talk about Jeff every week.
Dude, I was hoping you didn't bring. I was like, here we go. It's like, you know what? 2 costs got Jeff the show. I'm like, here we go. 3 costs, buddy. What do you got?
I mean, I feel bad. My 3 and 4 are like, really, Alex, you got to say these. But like, how do I not say Wave? Like, how is it not Wave?
Yeah,
like Wave
fair.
is literally, it's the best. It might be the best card in the game right now, in my opinion. Like when
I
did my like pull 3 cards to unlock thing, I'm like Wave number 1. Like it was too easy for me. I think this card's an insane card. The nerf was not a nerf. I don't care what anyone says. This card is bonkers right now. It is like you can literally put this card in your deck and shut down entire archetypes by itself. Like it's just,
yeah.
And the other thing about it, and I don't mean to just ramble here, but like Wave, the traditional Wave with She-Hulk, it used to be similar to Leech in a sense, where like it was a 3 power play on 5 because you rolled the 2 mana, right? But like now, like you can play at 2 costs. You can play Luke Cage and Wave on 5, and it just completely bounce up your things against high Evo or whatever, and shut down any combo play with Wasp or anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like because of the amount of good 2-cost cards coming out, it's allowed 2-3 to be played on 5, which is just like much better than it previous was. Bro, this is not a sexy pick either. Storm, listen, I thought Storm was going to be like the card to play because of the amount of multitasking she does. Dude, I'm putting her into decks that almost have no business needing her in there. Like, I need to have a way to put cards into those locations, which I typically do anyway because of high Evo lockdown and all these other things going on. Dude, I can't tell you how great it is to have Bar with no name, you know, up there. Or my opponent snaps, we'll talk about this, like Bar, what's that damn location called? Bar Sinister? What, the 4 times one, I can't think of. Bar Sinister, yeah.
Bar Sinister.
Pops up, my opponent snaps, I'm like, gee, I wonder why this guy's snapping. I got priority, I get rid of it, right? He's dedicated 3 cards to the raft, I storm it up, whatever, right? Just so much versatility for this card. The lockdown's just a bonus. I love Storm. 4 cost, buddy. Oh, by the way, Juggernaut. We can move up a Juggernaut, dude. Amazing.
Yeah. 4 cost has to be high evolutionary. I was worried. Like, obviously, I wasn't worried that we weren't going to talk about high evolutionary, but like this card, like what do you even do at this point? Like I think that it is absolutely wild. As a 4, imagine this card came out as a 4/6. By the way, like can you imagine it had come out as a 4/6? We were like, guys, it's a 4/6 as well. Like remember when like that original leak had happened? Oh my gosh! So glad that they actually made that change proactively. But I mean, it's absolutely insane. The combos are fantastic. I honestly think that Wasp is insane. I think Wasp is probably one of the highest performing. Obviously, the Hulk's insane too. But like, what do you even do to fix it? Like, I had this thought. Like, what do you make Cyclops only like optics blast 1 person? Do you cut everything in half? Does Hulk only get +1? Like, he still comes out as like what a 16 half the time. Still huge, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think that. It's like it's a tough balance. Like sometimes it's just like it's a good card and I get it. I kind of like the idea and I want to hear what our viewers have to say. Maybe you guys hate this. Like it's not like I didn't come up with this. I just heard it. The 4-0. Like your high evo is a dead card. Like you get nothing out of the card. You draw them, you lost that. But in return, you get cards with immense amount of ability. Even 4-1, I don't know. It doesn't have to be a 4-0. But I feel like that is kind of like your trade-off. That is a way I feel like you could do it without hurting the investment, right? Which is, we're going to talk about Galactus, but I think it's what Second Dinner does best, is they kind of make sure they don't kill cards, or they try to after the leader thing.
Yeah, leader was absolutely destroyed. But I think even when they rebuffed leader back to like, well, not really what it was before, they kind of said, hey, we don't want it got leader to be the term we use now. Like I remember that kind of developer comment. And I just think that High Evolutionary, like, first of all, I'm of the camp that I'm glad it came out spicy a little bit. I'd rather it come out spicy, shake up the meta a bit, be an exciting card for people. Like it was so anticipated. If it had been a crappy card that sucked, can you imagine everyone saving up 6,000 tokens for like the entire 2 months prior and it comes up and it just poo-poos all over itself? That would have sucked. Like no one would have liked that. I actually am kind of preferring that it came out a little spicy, maybe a little too spicy. And you know, now it gets brought down a little bit because there was so much anticipation here. Like this card is owned by almost everybody, right?
Yeah.
The 4-0 part, I think it takes wind out of your Jane Jaw, by the way. I think that's like, it's not insignificant. 4-0 is not insignificant because like it really does take Jane Jaw down a big notch, I think, but it also makes it so like you really don't want that card like in your hand. You just don't want to draw it. At the same time, though, the best part is playing those super powered cards. So yeah, what I had said before about like, oh, does one Optic Blast and maybe you nerf Hulk, yeah, then those cards feel crappy again. You know what I mean?
It's a delicate thing they're gonna have to figure out, but I definitely think it's coming. And since it's coming in an OTA update, probably, I think it's gonna be something of power value, obviously. So we're gonna have to see there. My forecast, I'll be quick on mine. Don't have to go into it much. I'll be honest. Outside of Iron Lad, I could talk about him all day. White Queen, exactly where I thought. The intel's great. Even turn one or battle one in the match, just playing her, and I'm like, I know what they got. I'll forfeit. Or I know what they got. Snap 4 cubes. What are you gonna do? Play passively, win the match, right? She's doing exactly what I thought. Have her with Quinjet. You have a 5-cost Dr. Doom playing the next turn. Like, just super cool stuff with White Queen. And try to get your head out of like, well, I better play Devil Dinosaur. Like, White Queen's just a good card. Just a good card. It's like, play it in a lot of your decks. It's going to work out. It's the perfect card for Conquest to just squeeze into another deck to give you more value and more dependability and surprise. 5 cost, Alex.
For me, it's Profex. I think Profex has been wild, and partially because I've been playing a ton of Jeff too. Like I'm a huge Jeff enjoyer. Surprise. And so Profex has a very natural slot there. I think that location lockdown is extremely powerful right now. My 2 cost was Daredevil. I mean, honestly, Cozy, there's too much to like about Profex. One combo I've been sleeping on, by the way, here's a little slide-in combo for you. I actually been trying some rescue into Profex because it's just so much power. Like people can't contest it. And I've even been doing rescue without the Daredevil because I'm like, you know what? If I put rescue onto a location, I feel like I can confidently win with that burst in power. I mean, I don't need the Daredevil because I'm pretty confident that Professor X is going to lock it down.
Yeah, solid pick, man. It's right now, meta feels like cheat a lane, win a lane. You win, right? Like that's kind of how it feels. And Pro X, just kill it. It feels, dude, I'm living in the highlight. People forget. Go back to my first videos, man. Like, I was the biggest Arrow, Daredevil, Pro. Like, all my cards are doing well, and I'm just like a proud father, you know, on Father's Day. 5-cost card? Listen, dude, I mean, I just said, first of all, her name. I mean, guy, the fact that I get to use Arrow and she be so dependable, dude, it's so good. And it's what you said, man. It's the Hulk. Oh my God, dude. It's the easiest cubes you'll ever get, you know? It's just like, it's so simple. She's now like the perfect Galactus counter, by the way, because of having more power than him as well. So it's like, she does like every job. Dude, I can use Arrow again. Like, I'm amped. I love it. She's a good card. I've been putting her in everything. I know.
Look at this guy. Like, look at that smile on his face. For the audio listeners, his face is getting flushed with excitement. He is just on the top of the mountain screaming Arrow's name right now. Hey, listen, I told you before I thought Arrow was good. I've been playing a ton of Arrow. She's so good. And especially in this wave meta. I've been playing a ton of her in Sandman. And it is dirty. You know why? You know what I love about Electro Ramp Sandman? You play Arrow, And you play Jeff, baby, on turn 6, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Dude, it's filthy. Put it in destroy. Like, I'm playing sometimes a free death, my Deadpool, and an arrow. It's like, are you kidding me? That kind of power is ridiculous. Play her in move. I play her in everything outside of like discard. But yeah, arrow's my 5. Kang in select list has been fun. Don't put him in a bounce deck, nothing like that. I put him in my ramp build, actually, because there's a lot of things you can do on ramp that you're like, and then it works out. Kang, I feel, is awesome for gold conquest because people are super skittish in gold conquest, and you go in and you snap, they're like, damn, should I back? And then you can kind of wither them down. And Kang just getting that 1 or 2 extra 2-cube wins gives him some value, and I like it a lot. He's a good threat.
Interesting take there, because I was almost going to bring up how I thought Kang a little underperformed, but maybe you're right. Maybe there's an opportunity to just use it very offensively to wither them down slowly but surely. But like, oh man, I was making decks and I had Kang because naturally, like, there was a lot of excitement about Kang and Conquest. It was just, he was too easy to cut.
Does not belong in a good amount of decks. Like, bounce decks are the best example. Like, dude, you need that momentum. You need a lot going on. You can't afford even having a dead card in there, right? There's other decks that kind of are in the same vein. Even Destroy, man, I have a hard time cutting 1 card. It's the decks where you're like, ramp, that works. Patriot, I'm already freaking blowing up with my Patriot Ultron move. I don't need another Mr. Sinister, whatever, right? He belongs in some decks, and the ones he belongs in, use offensively to even get 1 or 2 extra cubes. I'm liking him a lot. He's a good card. 6 cost, man. Let's wrap it up.
I mean, for me, 6 cost, it's Doc Doom. It's Doctor Doom in Conquest. I mean, it's like the catch-all. It's the ultimate catch-all card. Sometimes in Conquest, you don't know what you're going to be playing against, but you're going to be playing against them for like 5 matches potentially. You want a card that's just a damn good card, and I think Doctor Doom just knocks it out of the park. Like, this is a card that is very rarely disappointing. So often a win condition. It's just, I don't know. What can you say negatively about Doctor Doom?
Yeah, dude, I get it. Yeah, he's just good. Yeah, he just feels good. He's going to get hit hard by Spider-Ham. He's going to get hit hard by Spider-Ham, and I kind of think he needs it without nerfing what he does as a whole. Dude, I get that. Arnim Zola is mine because I feel like he works as a surprise card and a nope out and a power card. I don't need the Monster Island. I take my monster, move it over here. He just feels good. I like him in a lot of my decks. He's definitely one that people don't love. I definitely am more of a Arnim Zola stan than most, but I stand by it. I think he just works. And it was a card that I used in battle mode a ton as well, right? So it's kind of seeing that it's cool. And Ultron, but he's shouldn't be in a lot of decks. But so those are going to be our best cards, decks, and a little bit of our strategies. Excited to see what week 2, 3, and the Infinite week holds for us. The reward shop feels good. I think this is a good season 1. I think there's some things they need to fix. There's a couple things in the reward shop they need to clean up. I would love there to be... I mean, dude, it already feels like you could buy so much, but I think they need to be able to make a couple things even higher priced, but you can buy them unlimited. Dude, it's fun. It's a good game mode. They did a good job. All right, so Alex, there you go. The Conquest MVPs, decks, cards, strategies. We'll see what week 2 has in store for us. It's now time to talk about the June patch, but most notably, it's time to talk about Galactus and the nerf. Dude, I have never, in almost all of my videos, have seen 2 sides collide more, man. It was like the battle of the greats. It was like, this is the day Snap died to this is the thing that saved Snap. I just love how polarizing of a card Galactus is, even when he's not being played. Galactus has been nerfed, but also not. He was dead. Now he's great. People hate him. People love him. It's all over the place. What are your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts is it's definitely not a nerf. Like, it's much more of a sideways move, I think, to some degree. It's like, I think that, like, first of all, I was of the camp that I didn't want Galactus to get destroyed. I wanted Galactus, like, it's such an iconic card. We don't want it to get completely destroyed. But at the same time, it was really problematic. It can't be sitting at, 10% of the play, whereas, High Evolutionary is, 20% right now? But that's a conversation for another day. Galactus had to get changed. And I think that this was kind of a good first attempt, but I don't think they're done yet. Like, the obvious synergy with, like, Hobgoblin and stuff like that, like, it's still a good card. And I've been caught by surprise with it a couple times. But now, I mean, now I'm not. Like when I see a hobgoblin come over, I'm like, okay. I think the fanciest ones are the move decks, the ones that have like the Iron Fist style gameplay with the Galactus. I think are really creative. But honestly, like I don't mind it, but I don't think they're done tweaking it yet.
I don't know. He feels pretty good to me, man. He feels pretty damn good. Okay, so is he a worse overall card? Yes. The deck is worse overall. There's nothing that you can take away from that. And on top of that, it is like way less linear, which we've seen in the past. If it becomes less linear, like Shuri, people don't play. It's just like, it was great because of that reason. But it's sick. It's way better in a lot of other decks, right? And other strategies. I think the core thing that I liked about it is that now to beat it, you play Snap, which feels really good. And if you lose to it, like, you deserve to lose at that moment, right? Depending what it was or what you did. I will say, dude, the deck, the Junk Galactus deck is insane. It is a deck that focuses on pushing negative power, like Scorpion and the Green Goblin. And, like, no matter what, you're going to have a lane. Because now what's crazy about the 7 power is that you have such a big lane that they've got to make up on. And it's not just that, like, because they have limited card space too, like that Hobgoblin, man, like, woof. Thank God for Destroy Decks and Carnage. You have to make up that power, but it's not even just that. You know what I think is the perfect marriage in Snap? The perfect synergy, man, is Galactus and Destroyer. Like, the fact that this exists and that you can kind of decide as a Galactus player if you're going to go Destroyer Taskmaster as a kind of a last-ditch effort, it gives the deck a lot more consistency, man, in Conquest than I would have thought. And, you know, it's been not even a week. I think it's at a pretty interesting spot. And they could definitely tweak one number now. They turn it to a 6. Then they have a whole new subset of cards that beats it. But I feel like it's not bad. It's actually pretty legit.
Yeah, like it feels way better than it did before. Like I can tell already my comment section chilled down quite a bit. I think that the hate of Galactus has kind of settled in. I do think that players who are really relying on Galactus were playing it a lot, kind of didn't feel great about it because it definitely did drop down in power a little bit. But the key thing that I think you just nailed was that when you're playing Galactus, you're playing Marvel Snap now. And I think that wasn't the case before, because before you weren't playing Marvel Snap, you were playing Galactus. Hell, the person you were playing against couldn't even play Marvel Snap anymore.
Yeah,
like that was the problem with Galactus, and for the most part, I think that is more or less corrected. Now there might be a card that comes out in the future that turns into a disaster with Galactus, right? And then they'll have to revisit it because it is an extremely powerful effect. Make no mistake, right? It actually kind of reminded me similar to the, in your Red Bone interview when he's talking about the original Thor design, right? It's like, well, that would have seemed pretty damn broken.
Yeah.
And that's, Galactus kind of has that immense impact on the board state. So I really do think that it was a good change. I think it was a good step in the right direction, but I would be interested to see where they think they got to move in the future.
One thing Second Tenure does well, they take forever. Don't get me wrong on things sometimes that they should be quicker, but I don't know. I genuinely don't know what's better. To be super fast with a change and it sucked and then they have to do 3 more, kind of like, I don't know, token acquisition, or do they wait and make sure it's polished and then they release it and then it feels really good or better? It's a tough thing to kind of weigh against, and you're never going to get everyone satisfied there. But in this case of Galactus, it's a decent first attempt, and we'll see if it makes him as a big bad still a good relevant card. Dude, you know what? The home run hit that they had for the patch, like just the one that I think they did so well on, and it's more Surfer. Dazzler. This is what I'm talking about. This is like reviving a dead card. I don't care what you say. This was a bad card, guys. Like statistically, we saw it the lowest. I think we just did the popularity tier list. It was at the bottom. This now gives you another way to play Surfer, which is really cool. You take out the Storm Jug. You go with Dazzler, some more Brood, so maybe Storm goes back in. So that's my point. It's like, where does Ro go? Man, I was playing Dazzler in Ultron, and I was playing Dazzler with Surfer. And in fact, I think my first gold win was a Dazzler Surfer deck. Dude, great card. 3/8. Don't need a lot of investment. Can surprise people. It's really cool to see, especially in the Surfer deck.
It actually took me by surprise as well, because I'd been experimenting with it a little bit, and it did feel good. But for me, it's like there's so much competition space in Silver Surfer and just in threes in general. Like, I actually think threes is an incredible card space. Like, it's kind of funny. In Marvel Snap, I feel like threes and fours, like during beta, fours kind of feel like a little underwhelming. But now the 4 drops with Darkhawk, even Rock Slide being what it is, and I mean it's recently got nerfed, but like it's still incredibly impactful. Like we got really good cards that have really good effects at 3 and 4.
Yep.
And in Silver Surfer, you got to make tough choices because you can't just put everything in there. But I do think that Dazzler, like, it takes a different headspace for Dazzler. Like, you can't just, I don't think you just plug Dazzler into any Silver Surfer list.
For sure. Funny enough, I think I have to look back. On some of my lists, I cut Polaris because even though it's a 3-2, it's not. She's like a 3-8, man. So, like, you know, you have to make tough decisions. But I think that was the one where I'm like, it sucks because it really feels good when you can drop her and Maximus and Surfer. But I think that was I switched off a lot. Storm and Ladder would be switched out. I need Storm and Conquest. But yeah, great changes. Interesting. Can't wait to see a couple weeks down how Galactus ends up feeling as a card. And we don't have a new villain yet. We don't have, I guess High Evo is the new villain, but we don't have
High Evo's definitely the villain, I was going to say.
We don't have like a true villain, I feel like Galactus and Sherry for so long, but you know, maybe I'm wrong. We're going to go to the last subject though, Alex, and this is one that, because of time, maybe we'll be a bit quicker on, but I do think it is important to talk about, and it's snapping. Now, we only do this every so often, but we talk about snapping in the game, which coincidentally is probably pretty important to learn the ins and outs of snapping, even if you can retain this just a little bit. But largely in Conquest mode, I mean, yeah, you gotta nail it down in Conquest mode, or you're simply just not even gonna beat Silver. Alex, I want to talk about when to snap, how to snap, what you should be doing, but I want you to kick it off just like first thing that comes to mind when we're going to bring up the snapping conversation.
Snapping is by far the most important part of the game. And when I wanted to really buckle down and become an infinite player and make sure that like I was playing the best Marvel Snap I could be, the thing that I identified which was problematic in my game was snapping. I was snapping at inopportune times. I was not snapping at the right times. And I think that as I started to iron out that strategy, my gameplay, my win percentages, everything went up and my cube rates went up significantly. I think the major thing about snapping is I do believe it's deck specific. And I don't think that it just comes right down to, well, just snap at turn 4. Like, think about what Zabu used to do. If you had Zabu on turn 4 or 3 or whatever it was originally, you just snapped. Even if you had nothing else in your hand, Zabu, you just snap. And I hated the way that was played. Now each deck has very specific kind of power spikes. For instance, Jane Jaw. If you have Lockjaw, I think you're in a snappable position right off the bat. Like if you're holding Lockjaw, then I think you can snap. If you're holding Lockjaw Wasp and you're not snapping, you shouldn't be playing that deck. I think knowing the ins and outs of the specific archetype should give you confidence as you play more of it to make more appropriate snaps. And I also don't think you should be snapping before you see at least 2 locations, but that's just me.
Snapping is like, you want to obviously, like this is clearly obvious, but like in anything, you want to double down when you have advantage. You want to, not double down or even retreat or whatever, fold if you don't have the advantage. And when it's deck specific, you then know the cards or the things that you need, the identifiers to snap, right? Like a great example, Lockjaw there, right? Dracula turn 4, 5 MODOK, you have Morbius down. And some of those decks are good because they're very obvious indicators on what to do and when to snap. I think Educated Colin says it really good. He says like snapping is knowing you're ahead in a match when your opponent doesn't know they're behind. It's like such a great like a little slogan. And it's the damn truth, right? You gotta be able to, you don't want to snap for no reason, right? Like that's the number one thing. You don't want to snap for no reason. For the love of God, you don't want to just snap back. I can't tell you how many times people snap and like, yeah, screw this guy, right? Like he's snapping in my house on a Tuesday. Like, no, dude, it's don't do that. You don't want to snap when you've been losing a lot of games to try to catch up on ladder, right? Someone's throwing the emote to you, so you snap, right? There's a lot of reasons not to snap. But what I will say is, if you feel like you have gained the advantage in that battle, and that could be as early as probably turn 3. Turn 2, I think you could snap in select decks and circumstances. But if you play, like, dude, if you're playing Sokovia and Ultron and get whiffs, and you see that right away, you're like, well, A, Patriot deck, B, they just lost one of their token cards, C, if they maybe have Doctor Doom, it just tells you a lot, and you now have an advantage, right? Draw, playing on curve, and what your opponent is playing is key identifiers. Now, knowing the deck is important, Alex, but I feel like knowing curve, too, and when you're able to play cards and your opponent had to miss 2 of the 3 plays there, that's also really big indicators that it's probably a good time to snap.
Something that really helped my game immeasurably, okay, was honestly, and this is, I think, one of the biggest mistakes with snapping, is not staying in games when you don't have to. The idea of like your opponent snapping early. Listen, sometimes opponents snap early, right? And that's a good thing. I think aggressive snaps is one of the best ways to rank up. Like knowing by turn 2 or 3 that like you got your lockjaw or you got your piece, snap, right? And I think it's a good snap. Even if you ultimately like, you know, don't end up closing out the game, snapping when you're at the advantage is the correct choice. And one thing I just want to say is that like don't stay in a game like so often in Conquest. I'll be in a situation where they'll snap. And I know I don't have the pieces in my hand. And the choice is I can leave now and give them a cube, or I literally can run the risk of doubling my losses just to see if I draw something that's going to help me. Why would you stay in a game and double the stakes just to see if you're going to draw something that's going to help your situation, which already sucks? Get the hell out, go next. There's no reason for staying in that game if you know you don't have the piece you need. Don't wait for the draw. Lady Luck is never on your side. Just assume Lady Luck hates your face, okay? Go next. There's no point. And that's one of the reasons why, for me, I find myself giving a cube, and then I hit them for 4 back.
Especially in Conquest, right? Like, and if they're snapping, they're not bluffing most of the time. Like, most of the time, they're not like all in, and they don't have they don't have like 2 kings or whatever. Like that was the pocket kings maybe. It sounded like a guy who's never seen poker in his life there. But you know, they probably have their combos. You don't have your combo. You see a bar sinister and they snap, you know what probably it's gonna be. And if you're trying to get more cubes and you have Green Goblin and bar sinister's the second location, just wait a turn and then snap. Like don't go in right when you see it. There's nothing more obvious than like a location snap. But if you play a Venom for 18 and they snap, it's probably a good say that if you don't have priority, that's Shang-Chi, you're done. It's over. They've got that on the platter, right? So it's like looking at when your opponent is snapping is also something to really take into play.
Yeah, the tip is like honestly, if someone gives you the Miss Marvel thumbs up, I don't care what your health is, you take it all the way back.
Take them down, right?
Take them down. You have to.
Yeah, and I would say one other thing to keep in mind with snapping as well, Alex, is when it's turn 2, turn 1. I actually used to like turn 1 snaps with like Mr. Negative and stuff. I don't ever really do it anymore. You just have to see the locations most of the time. This is not the case all the time. There's plenty of reasons why you don't have to. But if you're only seeing 2 locations and they have Death Domain on the 3rd and they're playing Destroy, you're done. If there's Strange Academy, they're playing a move deck, you haven't seen the first 2 hands, you're probably going to lose, right? And snapping on turn 2, dude, nothing else changes after that until the last turn of the game, and then they can back out. So, like, you're not gaining anything out of it. That's why, like, my deck guides, turn 3, turn 4, mostly turn 4, turn 5 are the snapping turns for me. And I tend to get that cube. That's a little bit easier, right? And so when to snap is also important. Any other tips before we close it up?
No, I think that we nailed it. And for the most part, I think that ultimately getting more familiar with a specific deck is genuinely going to help you learn its snap cadence, right? Because all different decks have different snap cadences. And I think that there's also something to be said of this, specifically in Conquest, knowing what your opponent is playing and understanding what their snap cadence look like. And that's something that comes with experience, can help you save cubes as well. Because if you're playing against a negative deck and you know you're against a negative deck and they snap, turn 2, Psylocke comes out, you know what's up.
Yeah,
you know what's up, right? It's so you know you don't have to stay in that game unless, of course, you've got wave or something. But anyways, that's a whole other conversation. But I think that knowing the cadence of your opponent's deck, but most importantly yours, and this is something I think that as content creators we struggle with a little bit because we play so much different stuff all the time that like I sometimes keep a list of like, you know, just to remind myself of like different snap cadences and stuff like that, because I think it's really important to understand the specifics in and outs of a deck, and you're not going to get it after 10 games. You're just not. Cozy, this is turning into therapy here, but you know how often I get a comment on my YouTube videos where like I played 4 games of this, I went 0-4. I'm like, you can't. How are you playing 4 games of a bounce list and losing all 4 and then getting like you got to play at least 30 games. You have to. You don't even understand what you're playing yet,
dude.
Like it just doesn't work that way.
It's funny. Yeah, you definitely. We tell people to play the same deck over and over, not to know your combos, guys. Like, that's not what it is. It is knowing when to be aggressive and the decks it does well against. And I think Conquest mode can really help solidify that, especially Proven Ground. So that is like the quick 101 on snapping. We can talk about this monthly, guys, if you want us to. I think it's definitely a fun subject and very important in the game. Lots to talk about, a longer end of a podcast, but hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we have a whole nother crazy week ahead of us. More OTAs, a lot more Conquest coming down, and then I think the week after that, we've got ourselves the Infinity Conquest, and most importantly today, Spider Pig is coming out. Now, if you want to know what our thoughts are on that, you can head to, or Spider Ham, you can head to Alex's side of the channel. We'll be talking about that. Our favorite bad cards that are fun to use and more. All right, guys, have a good one. Have a great one. And until the next one, happy snapping.